There is a ton of fun to be had on Nintendo Switch, but a couple of cool games cost just a few too many coins. That's why today we're talking the top 5 overpriced Nintendo Switch games. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switch Force. Gabe is here, and there's some really good games that we wish more people would play, but they just cost a little too much, and that is where this list comes in. Titles that are worth your time, but maybe not worth the price point they have been placed at.
Yeah, and I feel like we could probably start with the biggest one of all, because you think that this is a game that people can have a lot of fun with. And I would be lying if I said I didn't have any fun with it at all, but definitely not for the $50 price point, and that is 1-2 Switch. Launch game, Zach, it showcases the technology on the Switch very well, and like I said, fun to be had, but $50 is a lot for this.
Yes, and at the time I fully understand, it's a brand new system, it's a brand new game, you're trying to really showcase and you're trying to show off a new minigame collection that you hope comes in and rivals something like Wii Sports. It doesn't come close to the replayability or the pure family fun that Wii Sports was able to deliver, at least for us. But I think it is still a cool package, and I still think there is enjoyment to be had. I just wish that this thing cost $30. And I know, Gabe, that you'd push for $19.99, but to me that's just a little bit too big of a gap, especially for a retail product, especially for a first-party product. I think $30, highlighting a lot of what the Joy-Con can do, highlighting a lot of what makes the Switch cool. There are still a handful of really, really exciting and chaotic minigames, and I wish more people would get the chance to play, but it's hard to recommend at $50.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I would feel much more comfortable at a $20 price point. By then, I think it almost becomes a no-brainer. Just because, hey, you're going to have fun at least for a couple of hours, and $20, I think, perfect. But yeah, I mean, $30 is probably fine as well. I wish Nintendo would give a good price drop to this one and have it in more people's hands because, yeah, I mean, there's good times to be had when you do give it a shot. It's just, hard to advocate for a $50 purchase on this when Odyssey, Zelda, other games exist for just $10 more.
Absolutely. And that kicks off our list. We'll move on to the second title, which is going to be Pokken Tournament DX. Now, this costs $60, and yes, for players that did not play the first, hey, $60 makes sense. But given the fact that there are a lot of other really mega popular Nintendo games, we would have loved to see Pokken Tournament come in at $40. I think it is a good enough game that at that mid-tier price point, it would have sold many more copies. We recently covered the list of million sellers for Nintendo Switch. Pokken Tournament was absent, and I think had it been lower, maybe it would have made the jump onto that list.
Yeah, there was new characters introduced and newly released DLC is out there that you have to pay for. But if Pokken was $40, I feel like it's a much easier sell. Now, look, you have Pokemon as a giant franchise, but Pokemon isn't exactly in the title. So it becomes a little harder to sell. Yes, Pikachu's still on the box cover and on the eShop, just cover, but Pokemon can only get you so much. The game is good. Like, it's a good fighting game. It's just... it's hard to recommend two fighting games, and ARMS is wholly new. Pokken isn't. So, yeah, $40 makes this a much easier purchase.
And they are adding DLC via Season Pass. Again, that's cool. It's new content. But as a double dipper myself, $60 on the base game plus DLC, man, that would be a lot more fun if it was $40. And I do think it's a unique fighter. And I think ARMS and Pokken give the system two very different fighters while we wait for things like the cheaper Pocket Rumble and hopefully the eventual multi-platform big franchise fighters. $40 would be a sweet spot for this one. And hey, our number 3 game is also a fighting game. That's Ultra Street Fighter 2, the new Challengers. It's $40. A lot of people loved it. It sold really well. So hey, they picked a good price point, I guess. I just think if this was $20, it would be a much more palatable purchase and one that we would recommend far more often.
Yeah, I mean, there was versions of Ultra Street Fighter 2 on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 that were $20. And those also did really well. But, like you said, it's hard to kind of criticize this one because it did sell so well. We do have a Street Fighter collection of fighting games coming as well. So Capcom is happy with how it went. But now you give this a price drop, make it $20. I feel like a whole bunch of other people would play it. We had fun, Zach, when we played this together at events and such. So it's still a really good game. The game isn't what's in question here. It's just it's such an old game, and was enough new added. Were enough new things added, to make this a $40 purchase. I personally don't think so, but it's a case by case basis.
To me, it's an instance of leveraging the franchise name, which is fine. But as you mentioned, there is a collection coming out. Ultra Street Fighter 2 New Challengers looks real weird at $40, regardless of what price point that collection comes at. So maybe they'll drop it then. I hope so. At that point, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot. But yeah, I wish this game was 20 because I feel like you and I would have been much more on board, and so would many others out there in the community. But that can carry us into number 4, which to me is the saddest on the list. And it's because it's such a great game, and it's one that I'm the most regretful about buying. It made our top Switch regrets video, and that is Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. And it has nothing to do with the quality of this game. Binding of Isaac is amazing. It's one of the best roguelikes ever. It is a fantastically creative concept, and the lore behind it is just downright awesome. $40 is too much. And I know, there's a lot of content here. There's a lot of packages. Even on Steam, it's not that much cheaper. It's just hard when you have something like Enter the Gungeon at $14.99 to recommend someone drop $40 on Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, and they do have a retail version that's also available for the same price. So, maybe if you're into retail, the price is a little bit more justifiable just because of the state of how cartridges are working. But yeah, even digital $40 on eShop, yeah, it's definitely tough. And since we've played this game so much on other platforms, I feel like that's why the $40 price was just so egregious. So if you've played it before, any version of Binding of Isaac, even though Afterbirth Plus is the far superior one, yeah, I'm pretty sure a $20 price point would have helped a whole lot.
Right, and there's just so many add-ons to the game, and there's so many updates, which is great, but it gets just so strange, right? You've got Binding of Isaac, which is $5 on Steam, and you got Binding of Isaac Rebirth, which is $15 on Steam, and you got the Afterbirth DLC, and so I understand how they're combining all of this together into Afterbirth Plus, which then they come out to this $40 price point. It's just a tough price to swallow, especially when I don't think people necessarily realize how much content is there, and it's not so much updating. It's not like, they're modifying the main game, right? And so I think to some players that aren't as familiar with Binding of Isaac, it doesn't look like as much content as it really is. I wish that they would offer this separately. If there was hey, you can get Binding of Isaac for $10 on Switch, and then if you want the additional content, maybe that's a better way to sort of solve this. But yeah, when something like Enter the Gungeon is such a good title and so fun for $15, it's a tough pill to swallow. And I wish they would have reconsidered, although I totally get it based on what they are charging for the Steam version. One that I get, but again, I don't get, is our 5th and final title, which is Doom, the Nintendo Switch version. It's $60. We really, really would like this at $40. I mean, it plays well enough on Switch. It shows that Bethesda and other third-party can bring their top-tier tentpole titles to the platform. Gabe, I know you had quite a bit of fun with it. We still see some people in our comments talking about enjoying the multiplayer, going after challenges. It is a port. It is an older port. It is not a first-party Nintendo that carries the charm of something like, Link or Donkey Kong or Mario. I think this just would be a really nice fit at that mid-tier $40.
Yeah, that would be perfect pricing. And we've seen examples of how third-party on Switch for $60 works, right? Skyrim was on the bestsellers list for quite some time. LA Noire was $50, not $60, but people still played that. And, I think enough people play Doom. I think it's sold relatively well. But if it was $40, I think it sells way more copies. You have way more people into the multiplayer because a FPS on Switch is something that doesn't happen a lot with multiplayer, at least not yet. I feel like that stuff is coming. But this is one of the few opportunities people have to do that. And I think that you have a much more lively and just bountiful player count if the game costs a little bit less. And it had sales for, Black Friday, and since then, Doom goes on sale sometimes. But if we can get a permanent price drop to $40 and then have it go down to $35 with sales, I think it becomes a much better value. The game itself is absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite shooters in recent memory. It's really, really, really fun time. And like Zach says, it holds up on Nintendo Switch. The port is a good one. Yes, it's not 60 FPS. Yes, you're not going to be playing in 4K. But you can take it on the go with you, and that kind of makes up for it. I absolutely love Doom. I just wish it cost a little bit less.
Right, and we saw Bethesda price Skyrim similarly, so it just sort of seems to be their MO. I'm fully expecting Wolfenstein 2 to be 60. If they ever do dip their toes into the Fallout waters for Nintendo Switch, I expect that to be 60. But I think if these companies, say for Nintendo, would embrace a $40 port price point, you'd see a whole lot better sales, and you would not get as much pushback from some of the hardcore fans that want nothing to do with this kind of games library. I think $40 makes them digestible. And if it's a multi-platform day-and-date release, of course make it 60. You know, no way am I advocating for a lower price point for day-and-date. But if you're going for a game that's years old, come on.
Yeah, that's the problem. The fact that you can get a, you know, I'm going to do quote unquote here, a superior version of Doom for less money in PlayStation 4, Xbox, PC. You can get Doom for less money for a better version somewhere else. So that's where the discrepancy is.
Absolutely. So that concludes our list. The first title, 1-2 Switch, it's 50. We would love 30. Pokken Tournament DX, it's 60. We would love 40. Ultra Street Fighter 2, the new challengers, 40. We would love 20, especially given that upcoming collection. Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus is 40. We'd love 20. We know there's tons of content there, but with comparable titles like Enter the Gungeon at 15, it's just a tough price. Doom, 60. We would love 40. Ports that come far later, hey, give us a far later price point, please. Let us know your take on this list. If there's any other games that you think are cool, good games that people should experience, but are just a little too overpriced. And if you can get any of these titles on sale, we do recommend them. It's just harder for them to fit into our Switch plans at their full price point when you do have things like Mario Odyssey, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and some other indies that we feel take better advantage of their MSRP. Until next time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Definitely talk at us in the comments down below. Follow us on Twitter at The Switch Force, where you can participate in polls and get up-to-date announcements about what we've got going on the channel and elsewhere. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest from the Switch and more sweet lists like these. We always want to try and inform you as best as possible and give you our opinions on what you should be putting on your pretty little purchase known as Nintendo Switch. So for myself and Gabe, until next time, Switch Force out.